up, jammies? Welcome back to another episode of Ricky's Ram Jam presented by Barefoot Wine. I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend, and instead of sugar plum fairies dancing in your head, I hope it was that win over the Saints last TNF, because that's what I was thinking about all weekend. The energy at SoFi last week was unreal. It felt like a playoff game under the lights. It was so much fun. I had the best time. SoFi at night, not to take away from our day games because those are amazing too, but there's just that energy when it's dark out and the lights at the stadium and just all the Rams fans that showed up on Thursday. It was so loud. It was rocking. It was just awesome. I do my kids say what most home games where I ask kids, funny questions, and then it plays on the Jumbotron. You can check that out on YouTube too if you'd like to see it on the infinity screen. But there were two kids that we had lined up previously where we knew what they were going to ask for. So I asked them what they wanted for Christmas. One kid said a Spider-Man PS5. Another one said an electric scooter. And then in game, we got to surprise them with Santa and an elf. And I was a part of it too, got to hand them the scooter, and the look on their faces, like the hugs from these kids. It was just such an overall amazing night. And then I got to take a red eye and get back to UNH. No, just to New Hampshire, but I'm sporting my UNH sweatshirt today from my brother for the holidays, which was so nice. It was so great to get back to Boston and New England for the weekend and just watch football, eat a lot of food, lay by the fire. It was like 30 degrees out, did some hiking. It was just such a great weekend, and I hope that everyone had one just as special. We're heading to the Giants for New Year's Eve. I want to think of some New Year's resolutions. So those are still work in progress. So I'm gonna ruminate on those for a little while. If you have any ideas, make sure you hit me up. Joining me now is the Athletics beat reporter for the Rams. She's a ray of sunshine, the co-host of the 11 Personnel podcast. It's Jourdan Rodrigue, or Abraham Lincoln.
I know, right? We're just talking about my cord. I don't know why they're positioned like this. My mutton chops. Hello.
Yeah. It looks like you've got some crazy apple sideburns going on. Shout out. Hey, I love nostalgia though. Like wired headphones. So cool, right? Throwback.
Thanks. I feel really cool now this morning. I appreciate you.
Good. I'm glad that I could contribute. Jourdan, oh my God. So how did you manage with no Rams football for the weekend after the mini bye? Like, are you surviving? Because you eat, sleep, breathe Rams. Like, what did you even do to fill your time?
Well, it was kind of great. It was, you just watched all the rest of the games and you kind of got a better feel for the pure comfort and depth of my living room chair, and B, where the league's at right now. And I thought it was probably really helpful. Sean McVay was telling us early this week, that that's what he did too. And obviously, had family and he had family and stuff like that around, but watching the games from that perspective is really helpful. But it's also can be a little bit of a rabbit hole effect, because you start to latch on to different ideas and you see what certain other teams are doing. There's certain things that you can get, things that sort of the inspiration that you can get when you're watching live versus when you're going through and watching the all 22 or even the broadcast copies, that you just miss stuff. Sometimes they just cut stuff out, or there's different things that the analysts notice, things like that are super helpful for coaches. But through the grind of a typical week, they usually, sometimes they miss certain things, but it's also easy to get carried away and go down the rabbit hole of, oh, wow, orbit motion on a running back rub route in the red zone. I really want to do that. And then you're like, wait, hang on. So you just kind of have to balance that. I totally felt that. I empathize with that, because you have to balance all of that excitement with what is the task for the Rams at hand, which is going out and trying to keep things a week at a time with the New York Giants.
Yeah, definitely a Christmas fever dream for sure. You wrote an amazing piece of why you think Puka should be Offensive Rookie of the Year. This week, Puka Nacua is the NFC Player of the Week. And with our jammies who might not have read it, why do you feel like he's in that category?
Yeah, my column last week after the Saints game, Puka has been making a case for himself all year. And by the way, I want to say that's not to take away from for other things that other rookies have done. But at the same time, you can't take away from what Puka Nacua has accomplished. I mean, 5th round rookie receiver out of BYU immediately makes an impact for the Rams. But you've seen him grow every week. And what I mean by that is, it started out where, I wrote early in the season about a feature about how he was in the Breakfast Club sessions with Matthew Stafford and with Cooper Kupp. And that's significant because that was the time for the quarterback to communicate with the receiver. This is what I need from you on every single play. This is what I expect from you. These are the tiny details that I need you to execute on every single play. And you saw that manifest, especially with Cooper being out at the first part of the year. You saw that express itself in Puka Nacua and a lot of zone coverage, right? A lot of zone beaters. And he was the first read for Matthew Stafford when the Rams were facing a zone defense. And it led to an enormous amount of production earlier in the year. And as the year continued, you saw Puka's responsibility expand. Not only was he put in some of the Robert Woods, I joke, I call it 11 and a half personnel because it's Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, but they're also like miniature tight ends. So Sean McVay can still use 11 personnel on every single snap, but he's got receivers out there who are blocking like tight ends. So you could run 12 and 13 personnel out of that structure with everything looking the same pre-snap. So you're getting Puka Nacua in with those Robert Woods throwback vintage blocking roles, but Sean McVay is also evolving his scheme forward to feature a lot more duo, a lot more gap running. And Puka Nacua is a crucial element in getting those blocks off and making sure that he can block down some of those motion blocks that they're doing in order to make those duo plays come alive. And so then you start to see his route tree sort of expand a little bit. He's doing a little bit more vertical things. He's got some of the downfield speed. I can remember a few weeks ago a catch he made down the sideline. That was total speed. And he's really becoming a player that you're seeing advanced technical things start to emerge in his skill set because he keeps growing and he keeps putting in the work.
I mean, after the Thursday night game, Matthew Stafford was sitting on the dais for Amazon Prime, and he was talking about Puka and how it's the most impressive rookie campaign he's seen in any position, which I thought was really poignant coming from him. And you talk about him throwing blocks. I mean, remember that game a few weeks ago where it was like, is it his rib? Is it his shoulder? He went into the locker room and then he comes back in and he's throwing blocks the first time he's just so tough. It's remarkable to watch. And why do you think he hasn't hit a wall like some other rookies would later in the season?
I just think it's part of how he started the year. He started the year on Matthew Stafford's schedule. So you're trying to keep pace with a quarterback who's been doing it for, over a decade at this point. And you start the year after OTAs when they start pulling him into these morning sessions, you're automatically on a different schedule than your typical rookie. And so doing that from the start, getting into routine like that from the start, I mean, I think that you've seen a couple of times where he's dipped a little or he's been genuinely exhausted. We've seen in the locker room sometimes he comes in and he says, I am working on sleep. I'm working on trying to understand how much more sleep I need now to recover versus when I was in college. And you see that rookie wall happen so often with him. I think you could point to a couple of the drops and he would probably point to this as well, but it's never been anything significant. There's never been consecutive weeks where you don't watch what he's capable of doing. And more importantly, what his role is specifically outlined within the perimeter and the structure of whatever that offensive game plan is, whether it's a high volume catch day or a high volume blocking day, you can always see what his responsibility is to the point where you can really understand that they've made him a really prominent and featured player within this offense, regardless of what the production or the stat sheet looks like. And they're doing it in a variety of different ways using their motion rules. Well, who is one of their number one motion players? Puka Nacua. So he said something to me the other day, which I just got a kick out of. It's like one of the things that they run, they call, I'm not giving anything away because it's a name that a lot of teams use, but it's a concept called blast. And it basically involves him blocking from the backside to the front side of the formation down on a player, whether it's a defensive end, a linebacker, a safety. And he goes, because I've either got to blast them out of the way and I've got to have a blast while doing it. And that's how he, it's just, he is finding ways to enjoy and have fun. And I think all of those things combined are a reason why you just haven't really seen him hit that true rookie wall yet, when I think reason and logic would tell us he could have hit it weeks ago, considering some of the hits he's taken and some of the production, but we just haven't seen that pure dip yet from him.
Speaking of blast, like, isn't it such a blast to cover these rookies this season? Like, I am having so much joy getting to know the Pukas, Kobe Turner, Byron Young, Steve Avila. I mean, these guys have been so pivotal on the field, but the energy coming from this team, and I'm like such a broken record when I talk about it, but it has just been such a breath of fresh air to have this energy surrounding these young guys.
Yeah, and I mean that genuinely too. You and I have talked about this a little bit as well. I've talked with some of the coaches about it. That's genuine. That's not just because you've got a Rams helmet and a towel behind you. Like, that is absolutely genuine. That is what you feel when you walk into that locker room. There's like a lightness there and an energy. And I talked with inside linebacker Ernest Jones about this last week because all the questions at the beginning of the season were, how are you going to manage being so young? How are you guys going to manage being so young on this roster, particularly on that defensive side of the ball? And Ernest sort of revisited the topic a little bit with me this past after this last game, and was like, I think that works in our favor. We don't know how to be tired yet. We don't know what the expectations, the weight of that feels like, because we're just going out there and playing and learning and growing. And we're not tired because we're young. And I think that that's something you see. The play energy is so high from so many players.
I'm tired.
Group. Yeah, I know. I'm like, oh my God, how many more games are there? Yeah. And
I'm like,
and
we don't have to be tired yet. As I'm on my fourth cup of coffee, I'm like, yeah, you guys keep doing it.
Yeah. I think the youth, if they could get over that hump of experience and knowledge, if they could just get to that level where execution was starting to meet theory a little bit. I think that a lot of people thought this is what could happen. The natural and youthful energy of the overall group would help carry the team into a different level as execution and theory met that experience level a little bit better than when they started the season. And I think that's what you're seeing. But this is also a group of people, they like each other. They all like being around each other in there. It's kind of remarkable to see. They've been through some adversity. They've had some tough losses, games that they shouldn't have lost this year that they did lose. And you still saw them stay really connected. You still saw them always with each other, around each other. You saw them leaning on each other. You saw them joking with each other and creating an environment and atmosphere in there that really feels very familial. And the vibes are very, very good, regardless of the pressure or the stakes. Good vibes in that locker room for sure.
Yeah, it's awesome. There's so much going on with this team this season that has just been so much fun to watch. There's a lot of discourse this, past Christmas about, best quarterbacks in the NFC and who is the MVP. And there's some names that we don't need to mention here. But Matthew Stafford, in the midst of his best 5-game stretch of his career, what has also stood out to you with Matthew Stafford's last 5 games since the bye?
Yeah, well, I really think it's the trifecta and really the quadrangle, I guess you would call it. But with Cooper Kupp, but obviously Cooper missed the first part of the year and Kyren missed the middle part of the year. But now that everything's clicking, I think you really look at the effects of Puka Nacua, Kyren Williams, Cooper Kupp, and Matthew Stafford all working in cohesion and in tandem in the run and the pass, and truly marrying the run and the pass the way that I think Sean McVay had a vision for at the start of the year. And now that everyone's healthy, you're kind of seeing how it all expresses itself. But Matthew Stafford is playing some of the best football in the NFL right now. December, he's played some of the best football that a quarterback has played in the month of December in history in the modern era of the NFL, in terms of, I think it's 10 touchdowns, no interceptions. Only 2 other quarterbacks in history have done that in the month of December. It's been fascinating to watch because I don't look at just his simple stats. What I was saying to everybody at the beginning of the year, when Matthew Stafford's simple stats looked weird because they did not match what you would see on the field, I would say, watch the tape. They'd say, oh, is he hurt? What's going on? People who I do interviews with or whatever. And I'd say, just watch the tape. You'll see the throws he's making, the things that they're trying to do. Like I said, you could see the theory of what they were trying to do. And if you watched what he was actually doing, the caliber of throws he was actually making through that time, that has not changed from the beginning of the year. But as an operation overall, they're much cleaner. Their execution is much better. They've got Kyron Williams back in the mix, and the run game is really starting to express itself the way that these coaches and players intended when they overhauled the scheme at the beginning of the year. And you're seeing everything click together again with that functionality that everyone intended and expected. It was always going to take some time, especially if you're missing Cooper at the beginning of the year and you're onboarding some of these young players. But I think you could always see the theory. I mean, you go back and you look at that Seattle game and you look at some of the games that they lost against really tough opponents, but they were still in and fighting in. And in those early weeks, and you could see what they were trying to do. They just couldn't really quite get there. And so now execution and theory are matching, and Matthew Stafford is really the play success rate and the EPA per dropback that he's able to achieve, especially on less manageable downs where he is able to manufacture a type of throw or manufacture an explosive play that helps the Rams even on disadvantageous downs that they've previously been on. And then now they're staying ahead of the sticks more frequently because of Kyron Williams. So you can really see how everything is interconnecting and working together. And Matthew Stafford is really the engine that makes it go.
Yeah. Sean McVay now 8-7 and a chance to clinch a playoff berth this week. How much credit does Coach McVay deserve for keeping this team together throughout the season?
Well, it's huge. I mean, it starts with his hiring process, too. I mean, he overhauled half of his staff last year, whether it was departures for opportunity or whether he was the one parting ways with previous coaches who had been here. They knew that they were going to have a massive infusion of players where they were going to have to start at ground zero with a lot of these players. And so he went out and he rebuilt kind of his coaching staff the way that he wanted. And I asked him about it this week, got teachers who are going to teach from the ground up. And that's not to say other people on previous staffs didn't or couldn't do that. It's just that between all the departures and the new wave of people coming in, this was how he wanted to approach the year. And so it starts there basically, where he's making these decisions on who he's going to put into which places on the staff. And then effectively communicating how this was going to go, how they're programming and they're teaching programming, and they're building up in incremental steps over time, what it was going to look like to really develop players. I know that he's reaching more areas of the roster than he had in past years. He is delegating to other staff members when he does that. So when you see him on the defensive field, sometimes he'll delegate and empower Mike LaFleur and Zach Robinson and Ron Gold and Nick Caley and Ryan Wendell and Jake Peets to go over and take and Eric Yarber to take the reins over on the offensive side, so that he can reach more areas of the roster and truly pay attention to the holistic development of this team. In previous years, it was so top heavy of a roster, which worked out, by the way, very well for the Rams, as we know. But at the same time, when everything is built around a certain core of a very high profile and very productive players and an offense that was getting overhauled again in 2021, the Rams changed their scheme again. This demanded so much attention and focus. Well, what I think the most impressive thing that Sean has done is, for the third time in 7 years, he has overhauled his scheme again to meet the league where it's at and even ahead of where it's at, which is what he prototypically was so good at and so known for back in the 17-18 days. And he's done that a third time in 7 years as a coach. This time, in these last two times he's done it, it's been with Matthew Stafford, who's had a huge effect on that as well. But for Sean McVay to do that while also reaching more of the roster than I think he ever has, I think it's significant. And I cannot say enough I see it every day, and I can't say enough about what he has accomplished in that regard and the growth of, he's talked very openly about it, of really looking at himself and thinking, what am I not doing? Where am I not bringing people with me? And making a conscious and very noticeable and apparent effort to correct that. And I think that that's one of the reasons why the Rams, you're seeing growth actually happen. You're not seeing a spike and then a stall. You're seeing pretty consistent growth all the way through the entire, even when they're not winning games. You're seeing, again, theory and execution starting to meet each other. That is a sign of coaching. That's a sign of players who are bought in. That's a sign of players who are talented and working their butts off to really meet the moment where it's at. It's a collective effort, and I think it like all these players say it's a cliche, but it's true. It does start at the top.
All right, Jordan, before I let you go, time for the Ram Jam, where I ask my guests 3 questions, the same 3 questions, rapid fire style.
Okay.
You're about to have your last meal on earth. What would it be?
Tacos.
Tacos. Any drink, any dessert? You just doing full taco bar until you can't taco no more?
Tacos and a good IPA. I like the Topa Topa Chief Peak. Yeah, tacos and a good IPA. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds great. If you could live in an amusement park, shopping center, or other fun place, where would you choose and why?
I actually would probably live in a Costco.
It's a good answer.
Yeah. Food, beds, samples, anything my dog could ever need.
Pharmacy. That's a good one.
Anything you need. I'd pick maybe a Costco. Yeah. Or similar
TVs.
such chain. Yeah.
Yeah. Lastly, what would a collage of your life include?
It would just be total chaos.
Aren't all collages though? Have you ever seen a collage that
lots of pictures of my dog, and lots of schematic diagramming, and probably a lot of string in between different, like the Always Sunny meme. Yep. Yeah. But yeah, pure total chaos. Lots of music notes and lyrics and poetry and messiness everywhere, and lots of pictures of my dog. Lots of football. Yeah,
cooking. I love your cooking recipes.
Thank you. I appreciate that's a little known secret hobby of mine that some people know about. But I enjoy that. Spoiler, yeah.
Spoiler, Jordan's a great cook, a great chef.
Yeah. That's my Zen thing is to cook. That's how I decompress, and I like to try lots of advanced, complicated recipes, things like that. So
you
haven't burned the house down. Yeah,
shocker.
Haven't burned the house down yet, but
yeah, please don't. But okay, Jammies, Jordan, thanks so much for hanging out with us today. If you feel smarter after this episode, like I already do, make sure you are reading all of Jordan's tweets. Her articles are so impressive. I implore you to read them all. I never miss one. Jordan, thank you so much for your time and your insight. As always, you have made me so excited, as always, about this team. I'm so excited for their New Year's Eve game against the Giants, and then Week 18 coming up against the Niners. It's going to be the great end of the year, and I'm excited to see what this team pulls off.
Thanks for having me, Erica. Always a pleasure. Thanks, Jammies.
All right, you guys, that does it for this week's Ricky's Ram Jam. Let's hear your New Year's resolutions. Mine is going to be, that's a secret. You'll find out next week. All right, you guys, that does it. Let's ram it.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on our videos.